Today's topic, I'll show you right here, is Oracle Business Rules, using Oracle Business Rules specifically in Beeple. Our presenter today is going to be Ron Pinkerton. He's a Principal Curriculum Developer in the Server Technologies Curriculum Group here at Oracle. Well, this is the time for me to sign off and for Ron to pick up to tell you about business rules. So here you go, Ron.
Okay, Gary, if you'll hand me presenter.
Yep, it'll take a second. You've got it.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction, Gary. And to everyone, hello, and welcome to this OLL live presentation about Oracle Business Rules. Today, I'm going to guide you through abridged version of a course that we offer. And what we're going to see today is a conceptual introduction to Oracle Business Rules, and then an exploration of how those business rules can be used from within a Beeple process. The goal of our course today is to offer you a brief introduction to the business rules. There's plenty more to talk about than we're going to get to, and to acquaint you with some additional Oracle Business Rules, Oracle Learning Library offerings that are available about Oracle Business Rules. So let's get started. Okay. So we have our outline here. We'll start with some basic vocabulary and concepts. We're going to assume that you saw a wide range of experienced respondent, although a couple of you had indicated you weren't familiar with Oracle Business Rules. So we're going to start by talking about some basic definitions, vocabulary, and concepts that describe the underpinnings of Oracle Business Rules. We're then going to translate those concepts into a configuration plan, step through a little mini case study, and then take a look within the product itself to see how we might configure an Oracle Business Rules service component within a composite application and call it from Beeple. So we'll start by talking about the Oracle Business Rules Dictionary. That's a container for one or more rule sets and data models for an application, as we see in our diagram. The rule set is a container. It's got definitions for a group of related rules and decision tables. Every dictionary has one or more rule sets. The data model includes descriptions of the data, values, variables, things like that that are used in the rules and decision tables. Now, if these are new terms to you, don't worry. These are the things we're going to start talking about. So we're going to tie all this together for you in the next few slides. So we'll start with talking about rules. We refer to Oracle Business Rules as declarative rules. And we use that term because the rules might be declarations based on conditions and actions rather than on coding. And they typically take the form of an if-then statement. In other words, if condition, then action. So we see an example of that on the screen. So the condition portion of the statement tests whether some business condition is true. In this case, whether a customer is a premium customer. And here we're thinking about business, not programming. It's one of the advantages of using Oracle Business Rules. We're able to extract business logic and business policies from coding and programming, make it available to business analysts for configuration and maintenance. Okay. So, excuse me. So we have a business condition being tested. Is customer a premium customer? Okay. If that statement is true, then the action portion of the rule is executed. One or more actions are taken. In this case, if the customer is a premium customer, we'll apply a 10% discount. Now, all of these statements are declared without any control flow. Again, we've isolated these things where they're going to be managed by the Oracle Business Rules engine, and we've extracted them from the programming layer. Okay, so keep that in mind as we step through the rest of our conversation. Next thing we want to do is talk about facts. Rules apply their logic to data objects known as facts. Now, our facts are discrete pieces of data. They typically constitute input and output values for the business rule. So, for example, our fact can represent customer information or sales order detail. Fact types describe facts. So you can think of fact as an instance of a fact type, if we want to put it in more Java-like terms. The fact types are part of the data model that we saw earlier contained in the rules dictionary, and they need to be defined before we can actually create any rules. In Oracle Business Rules, there's several types of facts that are supported, including XML facts based on XSD definitions, Java facts based on a Java class, rules language facts based on a rules language function. We've only got a short period of time today, so we're going to confine our conversation to XML facts. A global represents a data value or an expression that can be evaluated in rule conditions. Globals can be variables or constants. They're visible to all rule sets in the dictionary. Remember, we said there may be more than one rule set. Okay. Excuse me. Globals can be variable or constant. They are similar to public static variables in Java. So, for example, if orders over a certain amount require approval, we can create and use an approval limit global. That's what we see here. So we see a completed rule: if order total greater than approval limit, then needs approval equals true. So there's our business rule. We see order total, so our order total greater than approval limit. There's our condition. Order total is an incoming fact. Approval limit is the global that we're using. Then needs approval equals true. That's our action item. So if the order total is greater, then we're going to set a value for needs approval equals true. One of the advantages of using globals is they can be used across multiple rules and multiple rule sets. So they're visible across the dictionary. And this is also important because in the case of things like business policy, again, the approval limit is, for instance, 4,000 today. It might be 3,000 tomorrow or 5,000 tomorrow based on business rules. Because we're using a global, we can change the value one time in one place, and all of our rules are automatically updated. So contrast that with the notion of updating rules one at a time with hard-coded values, and I think you'll see the advantage of using globals. Bucket sets are another feature or element of Business Rules Dictionary that we want to talk about. Bucket sets provide the ability to define lists of values or ranges of values that we can use in our business rules. The way a bucket set works, it splits the value space of a data type into buckets. So they're defined as either lists or lists of ranges. So let's take a look at what that might mean. Here we see a pair of example bucket sets. One list of values: red, blue, green. So we have three separate string values. We have a second example: range of values: less than 1, 1 to 10, greater than 10. Okay. So I can associate the bucket sets with decision tables. We'll talk more about those in a moment. Fact properties, globals, or within functions and function arguments. Okay. So this association then can be used as a constraint to limit the acceptable range of values. So in the place where we might have an answer that's red, blue, or green, by using a bucket set, those are the only answers we're going to see. So we'll use an example in a moment of using a bucket set in a decision table. But first, let's talk about the decision tables themselves. Okay. We took a look a moment ago at a very simple example of a business rule: one if condition, then action. Within the real world of business, our business policies are probably more complex than that. We may have many, many rules that apply to a given situation. And a decision table offers us a chance then to express those rules in more of a spreadsheet-like format. So we can use a decision table to create a set of rules that cover all combinations of values and actions, or a set of rules in which no two combinations conflict. If you take a look at the example on screen, we see rows labeled condition and action. And we think about plugging in the various values here in the three columns. If ship choice equals 2-day, then use carrier red shipper. If ship choice equals 5-day, then use green shipper, and so on. So we see here the value of providing constraints or lists of values. The customer, imagine that we have customer order data and they've made a shipping choice. How fast do they want service? We've given them exactly 4 choices. One of these 4 values will be part of the order data. So what we want to do is determine which shipper to use based on their choice. And we have a list of only 3 shippers that we use. So rather than putting a more verbose if shipping choice equals 2-day, then use red shipper, else if shipping choice equals 5-day, then use green shipper, else if shipping choice equals next day or international, then use blue shipper. That gets to be a little verbose, a little more complex. So the decision table offers us a more compact and intuitive choice when there's many rules or combinations of values that need to be analyzed. So let's take a look then, how does a bucket set really work within the decision table? Okay. So we learned that bucket sets can be associated with decision tables and fact types, and we see an example on the screen. Okay. Our bucket sets have been defined within an XSD file that describes the facts used in the decision table. Remember, we said we'd talk about XML facts today. So here we see a sample schema. We have an XML element known as shipping info with a child element known as shipping choice. Similarly, shipping company and carrier. And then we see, using XML constraints, we define the 4 values that can be used for the shipping option, the 3 values that can be used for the carrier. So these are all defined within the single XSD file. And they provide us the list of possible values. And those drive the values that can and will be used at runtime within the business rules. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground in a short time. Let's go ahead and pause for just a minute, check our understanding here with a couple of polls. Okay, looks like 4 out of 6 of us have answered rule set. We have 1 bucket set and 1 no answer. And rule set is the correct answer there. Okay. So I think we have 1 more poll queued up. All right, and we have 4 out of 6 folks answered action. The other 2 abstained, and action is the correct answer on that. All right, let's go ahead and continue then. Talk briefly about Oracle Business Rules Engine. So we understand, we've taken a quick look at the pieces that go into a rules dictionary. Let's see why we care and how they interact at runtime. Okay. So the Oracle Business Rules Engine includes a client context and a rules session. Focus our attention on the rules session first. We see there's an area known as working memory, and we see the rule sets. We talked about those, right? Container for our rules and decision tables. Now, over on the client side, the client has the ability to assert or add facts to working memory. We learned that those facts can be XML data or Java objects, among other types. The rules engine then attempts to match rule conditions to the facts in working memory. Remember, we said if customer is premium customer. So the matching engine is going to try to determine, based on any of these facts, do we believe the customer is a premium customer? When matches are found, what happens is known as activation, and the rules are actually queued up in an agenda, which is also in working memory. So when all of the matching has occurred and all of the activations have occurred that are going to, the rules are then fired. And this is the place then where the action portion of the rule is executed. So first the conditions are all evaluated, then the actions are executed. Okay. So among the actions that can be taken, or I should say the action then has the ability to add, change, or delete the facts in working memory. So changes are made directly to facts. Okay. And if any facts are added or changed or deleted, the matching, activation, firing, and action cycle happens again. So this is cyclical until there are no further matches which yield no further actions. So that's the basic operation of the business rules engine. Let's take a little bit different tack. We're going to look at it one more time here. The Oracle Business Rules Engine is what we call an inference engine. And an inference is a conclusion that's logically made based on a set of facts or circumstances. In our case, the word facts applies very well. So in Oracle Business Rules, the Oracle Business Rules provide the logic. Okay, the available data is the facts. So the inference engine then is going to do the searching till it finds one where the condition is true. So we have here, again, another look at our rule session. We have a rule set that's populated by a series of rules. If customer is gold, discounts 10%. If they're platinum, 15%. If the customer spends between $3,000 and $4,999, make them gold. More than $4,999, make them platinum. And then we have working memory. Remember, we said that client has the ability to assert facts into working memory. So we're going to make a real small, simple example. One fact asserted. Acme Widgets has placed an order worth $6,000. So we'll assume that's all the assertion that's going to happen. So the next thing that kicks in, the matching begins. So there's an attempt to match. Customer is a gold customer, so we want to match the condition to the fact. There's no match there. There's nothing in that fact that suggests the customer is gold. If customer is a platinum customer, discount is 15%. No match. Customer spends between $3,000 and $4,999. Again, no match. However, the fourth rule, we have a match. Customer spent more than $4,999. So we have, our condition is met. So we have an activation. So we're added to the queue in the agenda. Now, in our case, that's the end of the matching. So all of the activated rules are going to be fired. So now the action portion, make the customer a platinum customer. Remember, we said that that action includes asserting facts into memory. New fact asserted. Acme Widgets is a platinum customer. We also said if there was any change, cycle would occur again. So we see that now. Customer is a gold customer, still no match. However, this time around, the second rule is a match. Customer is a platinum customer. Now the other two rules we'd attempt to match, they wouldn't match. So again, this would be the only activated rule. Discount is 15%. New fact asserted. The matching process would occur one more time because there's been change, but no additional matches would be found. So we've now determined the return value of our call to our business rule. Acme Widgets discount is 15%. So we've placed the order data in, we've received the discount value out. So this cycle, because the forward chaining inference, remember we said inference, draw a conclusion from facts. Forward chaining, because this is a self-driving cycle. It will occur again and again until there's no further facts to evaluate. So let's go ahead and check one more time, one quick poll on our understanding of that, and we'll move on to the service component and the BPEL call. Okay, it looks like we have 4 out of 6 saying assert. We have 1 answer inject and 1 abstention. And assert is indeed the correct answer to that question. Okay. So let's go ahead then, move on and talk about the service component. We're going to take the concepts we just discussed and translate them into a configuration plan, and then we'll move to the demo portion, of our conversation, and see how that configuration of the service component and the BPEL call work. So we have a little mini case study at the top of the slide. BPEL business process within a composite app handles incoming purchase orders. Any order with a total greater than 4,000 must be reviewed. So that's our requirements. So we take all the things we've just learned and we say, well, what does this mean to me? Where do I start? How do I build a business rule? So we start by answering some questions. We say, what is the business policy you're automating? Our example is pretty small, pretty easy to see. Any order with total greater than 4,000 must be reviewed. And we want to refine that policy to 1 or more if-then statements. So we say, if order amount greater than 4,000, then review required equals true. I've chosen the words order amount and review required arbitrarily. We're simply using them as placeholder variable names for our conversation. So we look at the refined policy, and does it use 1 or more else-if statements? In other words, is there a case for using a decision table here? Our sample's pretty small, pretty simple. I don't really see the justification for that. So we're going to say no. So we add the business rule to our requirements, and we continue asking questions. What input facts are needed to complete the rule test? Well, we need to know the order amount. And we need to think about data type. That's one of the things we're going to have to assign. Okay. So we say, yeah, the order total amount. What does it need to look like? We have a whole number in our example, but it's a good guess that a decimal value will be more appropriate. Now we're using simple data types here. This is all based on XML, so we could have larger, more complex constructs in the real world. We're going to keep this pretty straight ahead, pretty simple. One more question to answer. What will the response or output fact look like? Review required equals true. Well, that word true is a hint that we probably want to use a Boolean value to flag whether the review is required or not. Okay. So one more thing then, we want to turn our attention to the opportunity to use globals or bucket sets to make our example more sound. Are there any values that may be used in many places? We don't know. We see there's an approval threshold there. We don't know. We don't have any information. So based on that, we might say no. However, the next question says, are there values that may change with business policy? And because this is a business policy, again, could be 3,000 or 5,000 tomorrow, yes, there is a value that may change. And as we saw earlier, that's a pretty good indicator that a global is a good idea here. And then finally, we think about bucket sets. Are there any lists or ranges of values we want to apply as constraints to our facts or globals? Again, based on our modest case study, the answer will be no this time around. So that's us processing our case study. So we review our configuration plan then. We've actually answered all the questions we need to. First, we need to define facts in an XSD file. And we'll create a composite application and we'll import the XSD file. We'll create a business rule service component in our composite application. That's a given. And we'll link it to a rules dictionary. And finally, we'll configure that rules dictionary, making sure it includes the necessary fact definition. I'm going to back up there, and I'm going to switch to demo. It's to talk about. I've got some editing windows open here. First, we can see, for instance, the order type decimal, no further configuration specified here. Similarly, element review with a child of type Boolean named required, so we have review.required of type Boolean. And that's all that we needed to do to define our XSD. I'm going to click now on the composite XML window. This is our graphical representation of the composite application. There's a couple elements I want to draw your attention to. The first is order processing. This is our BPEL process, and this arrow and connector to the left to the orange box says order review. Order review is our business rule service component. So what we see represented in these two elements is the business process calling the service component. Let's go ahead and take a look at the service component first. Okay. I double click, and we've already created this We're in the Rules Designer now, looking at the contents of the Rules Dictionary. There's a series of tabs down the left here that give us a window into what's inside. I've clicked the Facts tab, and we see here a fact called Order and one called Review. There's a third overhead fact, not of concern to us, generated automatically. So I have the ability to add, edit, or delete facts from this window. So I can dig into the order fact, make changes if I need to. Okay. I can add facts, I can delete, and so on. Okay. We said we were going to use a global. We've got one created here called Review Threshold of type Big Decimal. That's going to value as 6,000. Our rule said 4,000. We're going to want to edit that. So I click on my pencil icon. I see here I could change the name, the data type. I could associate the global with a bucket set, and I can change the value. I'm going to click on the expression builder here to do exactly that. So I replace this with 4,000. I say OK. Constant, final, description all in place. Looks good. Now I've made this single change. No matter how many rules rely on this, the change has been made, well, globally. So rather than have to go in and edit rules one at a time tediously, we've just seen an advantage of using the globals. Now we said we weren't using bucket sets this time. We won't have time to talk about links or decision functions, but let's go ahead and take a look at the rule set. I see the rule set here. I see a rule named Review Required. So it's got a logical name. And I see if order.amount greater than or equal to review threshold, then assert, remember we said we could put facts in memory, a new fact of type review, the element required set to true. I'll go ahead and add one more fact here. Call it no review. And I'm going to insert a test. I have a series of pull downs here. Product already has some intelligent ideas about what's available based on what's in my composite application. So if order amount is less than the global named review threshold, then I want to assert a new fact of type review and set its child value property. I don't think we need to use the expression builder on that. We can select from the dropdown, false, no review required. And that's all there is to defining a rule. All of this has been done by us in just a matter of a couple of minutes within the editor, and we see some benefits. There's something known as a decision function added. The decision function provides the ability for the business rule to be called as a web service. So all of this has been, again, defined automatically, and what we're really looking at here is the equivalent of an abstract WSDL. Yes, it'll be invoked as a stateless web service. Here's the name of the service it's going to invoke. Here's the input and the output, again, order and review. So this is how BPEL is going to be able to call our business rule. Let's go ahead and take a look at the BPEL process. Okay. We have an unfinished business rule or business process here. We do have the key pieces in. We have a client is passing data to the business process. The input is being received. And then that input is being passed to business rule. So this is our activity or discrete step within the business process, excuse me, that provides us access or the ability to invoke our business rule. I see here there's a dictionary associated. Order review was the data dictionary that was created. We're invoking the decision service that we just saw a moment ago, a text description of the operation, and the input and output facts. Now it's here that we're assigning data from the BPEL process to the invocation. And to do that, I clicked on the plus icon, and what I got was a GUI that generates a copy statement. So I have a representation of the entire order data for the customer. Remember, we said we want to check the order totals, so that particular element is highlighted. In the right-hand pane, I have a variable known as DSIN, stands for Decision Service In this case, and I've selected order.amount of type decimal. With these two fields highlighted, I click OK, and the appropriate BPEL copy instructions are generated to assign this to the invocation. Similar process went into assigning the output facts. And that's about what was involved, excuse me, in invoking the business rule service component. Now remember, we said it's going to return a value. So we're going to want to process that within BPEL. We'll do that with an if statement here. So I say if, we have a BPEL variable called needs approval here. If needs approval equals true, and then the if statement splits off where I can plug in the actions. Our process is incomplete. If it needs approval, I might add an invocation here to a human task where I'd actually get a human being involved to review the order and approve it, or possibly reject it. If it doesn't need approval, I might put programmatically in here a BPEL step that automatically updates the order status to mark it as approved. In any event, whether it's manually or automatically, the order will receive its approval or rejection potentially, and then that response will be passed back from BPEL to the calling client. So I'm going to move back to BPEL now, or to the presentation. I'm going to skip past a couple of slides here. We've seen this piece already. Okay. We've done our demo. And that brings us then to the Q&A session. I wonder if via your chat window you might have any questions about anything we talked about, or potentially anything we didn't. Don't be shy. Go ahead and use that chat window.
Ron, it looks like we don't have any questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to say, Ron?
Well, just briefly, I'd like to point out that the Oracle Learning Library, at the URL that you see on your screen now, has free demonstrations and tutorials, including a couple of Oracle Business Rule titles. This presentation was a distillation, a very abridged version of two of those titles, Introduction to Oracle Business Rules, and Using Oracle Business Rules from BPEL. So I certainly invite and encourage you to visit the Oracle Learning Library, take a look at those and other demonstrations and tutorials that are of interest to you. Okay. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Ron.
Okay. And I would like to take one last second and say I'm Ron Pinkerton, and thank you for your time and attention today.
And a big thanks to you, Ron, for giving a great presentation and a great introduction to Oracle Business Rules. That brings us to the end of our presentation, and I'd like to mention that if you're interested in playing back this webinar or accessing other free content, just go to the Oracle Learning Library, and it's the URL that Ron presented earlier, and you'll be able to do both. So that concludes our webinar. Many thanks to you for all attending. We're going to have more of these in the future, and wish you a great day. Bye.